Hey guys, Zach Mars here, and this is my review of Danny Phantom. Okay, so this episode Beauty Marked is, well, essentially, what happens was Sam winds up signing into a beauty pageant, which winds up being a ploy for a ghost to get a ghost bride, to get a bride for himself. But, yeah, that's essentially the premise. But, in case, the episode opens up with Mr. Lancer introducing a woman named Dora, and, we obviously know that Dora is a ghost. I've already discussed that. Dora, it's also not very subtle, but given the type of dress she wears, but, it is heavily implied that it is in fact Dora the Dragon Ghost. This is because of given her design and how she acts. But of course, this mysterious woman who is definitely not a dragon ghost, then proceeds to reveal that it's obviously the time for the beauty pageant. She's going to invite everybody there to participate. And Sam admits she couldn't care less because she finds beauty pageants to be substandard. She does not like that. She doesn't like, well, essentially she thinks it's incredibly old-fashioned, and that she doesn't think that it's right to judge people only on their standards of beauty and nothing else. That is it. But and of course, meanwhile, Danny is currently busy trying to fight with an executioner ghost. That is, a funny bit throughout this entire episode is that every time Danny sees the executioner ghost, he makes an axe pun, which is really funny. But in any case, Danny proceeds to fight fighting the executioner ghost when the executioner ghost suddenly wraps a rope around Danny's legs and drags him onto the stage, where Dora is going through all the possible contestants to figure out which of the guys would best be suited as a judge, and she proceeds to go through all of the possible candidates. Obviously, with Dash and Quan and Tucker are all volunteered, but for varying reasons they're not allowed. Tucker in particular is funny because he's too annoying. But eventually, Danny is dragged on stage and he turns into his he's ripped out of his ghost mode in the process, and he winds up landing on the stage where Dora declares that he'll be perfect. At which point, we see a mysterious dark prince, whose name we don't learn right away. But we see a mysterious dark prince appear, and it's revealed that he's the exact same same type of ghost as Dora, because he immediately transforms into a more sinister-looking dragon than she is, and remarks that Danny will in fact be the perfect pawn. At which point, it is revealed what ultimately happens. As we find out, because Danny is the judge for the talent show at Casper High School, we find out that all the girls are doing their best to get on his good side. They are, and of course, Danny is not interested at first. But at one point, Star walks up with him with all of his homework completed through next semester, which he admits does please him. So he's very happy about the fact that Star went out of her way to complete all of his homework through next semester. So he's essentially good. But meanwhile, Tucker is obviously trying to get himself in on the fringe benefits, because obviously, as the judge's best friend, he also gets his fair pick of girls, which of course does wind up working. He winds up asking a girl out. She has no interest in him until he reveals that he's actually the judge's best friend, at which point she's all over him. And he's very excited about that, but he's also has in his PDA a list of all the girls at Casper High School that he's going through, trying to figure out who would be best to date on which days. And it's of course at this point where he eventually finds out that Sam is on his list, and very visibly confused as to why, Sam walks up to them and reveals that the reason she's in the beauty pageant is because she thinks it's stupid and she wants to make a statement. At which point she's then dragged out into the outward trials and stuff, where she can learn how to actually be, trained to actually be a beauty pageant contestant. Meanwhile, Danny, of course, Meanwhile, it's at this point where Danny discovers another perk of being surrounded by girls who want to date him and want to get on his good side. Dash can't pick on him because Dash of course tries to pick on Danny for being suddenly popular. But what he immediately finds out is that all of the girls in Casper High School immediately come to Danny's defense and immediately chase him off for daring to pick on their judge. So Danny, of course, is very happy because it means he's essentially popular enough that he doesn't have to worry about Dash anymore, and he essentially doesn't have to worry about getting beat up, which he very much likes. So yeah, so essentially he doesn't have to worry about Dash, and he's got his pick of any girl in the school. Danny's happy, but he's at this point where we're at the training thing at their little boot camp, which Danny and Tucker, I should mention, are watching and picking and choosing which girls to actually ask out on which days. They are, of course, we see that Sam, of course, is obviously the odd woman out at the talent show. Obviously, she's goth and admits that, and with Dora pointing out that it's good that she has individuality, but also tells all the girls that her ultimate end goal is to train them in the ways of being a princess. They are supposed to be perfect little princesses who obviously need to go on stage, they need to look their prettiest, they need to do a whole bunch of other demeaning things that are kind of demeaning and sexist, being perfectly honest. I've never really liked, I don't know, beauty pageant. This episode definitely does take a good shot at beauty pageants. This was made about 15-20 years ago, so I'm not sure how well it holds up now, because I'm pretty sure beauty pageants probably changed their standards and a couple of other things. But definitely at the time, I feel like this was pretty accurate sentiment. Beauty pageants are not, well, pleasant for ladies. They're just expected to be pretty and look pretty and act pretty, and it's a whole bunch of crap. Because obviously girls can be whoever they want to be. Don't force somebody into a standard be all end all mold. That's because that's not how people are. They're individual people, They have their own personalities, likes, interests, other things. Obviously, a beauty pageant kind of strips them all down to just being kind of the same kind of girl. I don't like that idea. But so the episode I don't think I've ever thought about that. I don't like beauty pageants. This episode made me realize I don't like beauty pageants. Neat. But in any case, from that point on, where Dora then proceeds to train all the girls to be pretty little princesses. But and of course, Sam is failing miserably at every task. There is a task where they have to walk with a book on her head to practice posture. Sam reads it and runs into the girls in front of her and knocks them all over, which Dora finds upsetting. And then they have to practice their princess gait. And of course, Sam has combat boots on. She wears combat boots, which means her feet are bigger than they should be, which of course upsets Dora as well. And of course, we also find out that she accidentally steps on Dora's foot, which causes Dora's face to momentarily shift into a dragon face, which of course Sam takes very big note of. But also, Sam, of course, in the time as well, proceeds to smile. Once again smile, do her smile practice, and she works vampire fangs. So Sam overall is just deliberately trying. Obviously, Sam's trying to send a message that beauty pageants are demeaning. She's kind of succeeding by just going against the grain and being and not really fitting into the mold, with Dora not being particularly happy about that. But of course, Danny, again, as I established, Danny and Tucker are watching this entire thing. It is at this point where Danny sees the Executioner Ghost again, and realizing the Executioner Ghost is going to hurt some kids by chopping a tree down and almost flattening them. Danny immediately goes into his ghost mode to go and figure that out. He immediately races off to stop the Executioner Ghost and saves the kids. But by the time he saves the kids, the Executioner Ghost is long gone, with only the felled tree as any evidence that he was there. But with that, Danny, of course, then proceeds to return to his seat, very visibly confused as to what happened. But of course, meanwhile, after Danny is just kind of everybody's working out. Danny is, of course, sitting at the table, and Sam then proceeds to posit her theories to Danny, pointing out that she starts to believe that something isn't quite right with Dora, and he's a little visibly, and she's obviously hoping that Danny will look into it, but Danny's kind of only really half paying attention because obviously all of the girls are just fawning over him, and one of them is giving, and one of them, I think Star, but one of them is giving him a back rub to loosen up the tension in his shoulders, which he very much appreciates. But he admits that yes, he will deal with it later, but for the time being, he openly admits that he's not going to worry about it right now. Obviously, he's just kind of cashing in on his popularity, so of course he's just not worried about it. He's just going with the flow for the time being. And Sam, of course, is annoyed, but it's at this point where Danny then proceeds to have to fight a new ghost that shows up, an archer ghost, and the archer proceeds to shoot a bow and arrow at Danny, with Danny turning into his ghost mode and catching it, but then quickly discovers that there's a bomb attached to the other end, and he blows up, at which point the ghost proceeds to continue shooting at him, and eventually pins him against the wall, but then proceeds to leave, and with Danny eventually having to free himself, but very visibly confused as to what's going on. But, of course, is also annoyed that he can't seem to shake these ghosts that keep showing up. But, in case, at this point where Dora proceeds to, now that everything's started, Dora proceeds to get ready to prepare everybody to go out and go get ready for their beauty pageant things. She continues to train them with and she admits that it's revealed that she's talking to her brother. It's revealed that the shady prince we saw is her brother Aragon. And she proceeds to explain that it's confused, that obviously the ghost child is distracted, and that obviously he doesn't suspect a thing. And of course, Aragon proceeds to scold her, pointing out that even though Danny doesn't suspect a thing, Sam is seemingly catching on to her. So she needs to be very careful. And he admits he's frustrated that he's trusted her with this, but admits that, just tells her to keep doing her job, and just also proceeds to scold and proceeds to tell her that she should not really think, pointing out that she should just do as she's told. He outright tells her not to think for herself, which winds up becoming a thing because Aragon is a dick. We're gonna get to that. Aragon is a dick, but in case, Sam proceeds to overhear the conversation, but eventually it's the night of the beauty pageant, and of course they proceed to set up the stage and get ready to send everybody out so that they can see all the respective talents and all the other things that they can do. And of course Danny is initially going to be there, but then he winds up getting attacked by the executioner ghost and the archer ghost at the same time, as he's running toward the pageant, and realizes he can't really shake them. But in case they then proceed to gang up on him and almost defeat him, when of course Danny realizes, and of course Danny is able to fight back, quickly fights back against him, but they're about to defeat him when they realize what time it is, at which point they leave. And Danny is very visibly confused, but realizes he's late for the pageant, and immediately rushes to his seat at the judge's chair, and immediately sits down, where he proceeds to watch all the girls perform their talents. And there's a really funny scene in here, where Lancer is sitting there in a lute suit, playing a pipe, and also singing a cheesy little song to introduce the girls as perfect little princesses, which, it's just a funny visual. It's Lancer, so you're not expecting it, but also, yes, you are kind of expecting it. It's Lancer, but in case at this point where Danny proceeds to sit down, watch all the girls go on stage, and obviously by this point, Sam is trying to figure out a way to get out of the pageant, because now she realizes that Dora has sinister intentions. But Dora then proceeds to tell her that she's not going anywhere, and makes her dragon face, and then proceeds to force her to go onto the stage and perform her talent, so that she can have all the talents represented. And of course, Sam, left with no other choice, then proceeds to remark that her quote-unquote talent is going to be a poem. And it's at this point where she, not so subtly, tells Danny announces that Dora is a ghost to everybody, which of course Danny doesn't figure out, thinking if that's such a grand message, but then realizes what Sam is trying to say, and immediately runs on stage to save her. At which point, which is ironically at the exact moment where Lancer asks him if he has picked a winner for their pageant, and when he believes that Danny has picked Sam, he thinks that Danny has completely lost his mind. Which with all the other girls being obviously visibly upset as well once they realize that Sam Manson, this girl who's not traditionally pretty, wins a beauty pageant. And of course, it is at this point where Dora then proceeds to place the beauty pageant crown on Sam's head, and is then spirited away to the ghost zone, where we find out what the end goal that Eragon had this entire time was. As it turns out, Eragon reveals that now it is that took a lot longer than he was expecting, but it means that he has finally selected his bride, which of course Sam is very visibly confused and is confused as to what he's talking about. But of course, we find out that yes, now that Dora no longer has to deceive Sam, she immediately switches back to her ghost mode. But of course, she proceeds to reveal that what exactly is going on. She proceeds to explain to Sam that now that she's wearing the crown, she has been selected to be her brother's bride. Which means she is essentially forced to become. Dora now has to force her to become a princess, which of course Sam is very visibly upset by, especially since the magic of the crown, both first and foremost won't let her leave, but also won't let her take it off. It is now stuck to her head. So of course, she is very visibly angry about that, pointing out that she obviously can't leave. But of course, Dora then proceeds to ask her if it's wonderful, pointing out that the only person who can take the crown off is Prince Eragon himself. She is currently stuck wearing it unless he just needs it to remove it from her head, which of course she's very visibly upset about. But wonders why she goes along with her brother. But she admits that her brother doesn't really permit her to think for herself, as we've already established, and he admits that he'll have her head if she doesn't turn Sam into a proper princess. So she then proceeds to offer her a bunch of frilly things and other things to try and convince her to be a princess. But which of course Sam does not Sam just hates the idea of being a traditionally pretty girl. We've established that Sam values her individuality. Case in point, she's a goth, but she values her individuality, so she hates the idea of being a princess. She hates that. But meanwhile, all the girls have since turned on Danny over at Casper High School, because obviously Danny picks the quote-unquote wrong girl. So and of course Dash is the one leading the charge, pointing out that Danny's get out of whale free pass just officially expired. But then opens the bathroom to get to Danny and discovers that Danny's isn't there. As it turns out, he and Tucker had already fled to the ghost zone to go look for Sam in the Fenton speeder, and they admit that they have no idea where Sam is, pointing out, or even if she's in the ghost zone. But then they use the real-world object locator thing to find her, so they immediately go in the general direction of that. But they do proceed to go to Eragon's castle, where they quickly discover that Eragon's castle. We do see it from the outside at this point, but Eragon's castle has a weird aura around it. It's case in point, the second they fly through the door using the ghost worlds. Humans are ghosts thing, even though Danny is in his ghost mode, which is a little bit interesting. But they proceed to fly through the gate and of course at this point where they then proceed to crash. Because suddenly the Fenton speeder stops running on power and no longer works. So they wind up crashing on the outskirts of the castle, which they have note is very interesting. So they get out, and of course Tucker also knows that his PDA is dead, which of course he's very visibly confused because he admits that he's not entirely sure why his PDA doesn't work anymore either, and admits that it's almost as if some sort of ability is over it, and we do find out why. As Dora is finishing putting the finishing touches on Sam. And we find out that technology do not in fact move. around Aragon's castle. As we find out, he has essentially trapped everybody in the Dark Ages, which means technology doesn't work anymore, and time does not move anymore. So unfortunately, Sam's watch doesn't work anymore. But of course, very visibly frustrated about that. It's at this point where Dora then proceeds to point out that she's too late, that they're too late, and that's now they have to get Sam ready for her whole wedding proposal thing. Meanwhile, Danny and Tucker are walking through the halls. We're walking through the courtyard, looking around, trying to figure out who exactly it is that lives there and whether or not they can find Sam. But suddenly they're attacked by the Archer Ghost and the Executioner Ghost, who very quickly overpower Danny. And Danny hollers to Tucker to get him out of there and get some help. And Tucker immediately goes to his usual mainstay of uses PDA to hack into a thing, but quickly remembers that the PDA does not work. So instead, he chucks it at one of the ghosts, which causes them to drop Danny. And Danny then proceeds to land on top of the Execution Ghost, and realizing this technology is still useful for something, he then proceeds to chuck it again, and uses it to break the statue Danny was hanging from to defeat the other ghost. And of course, Tucker is just happy that technology did not let him down, even though it doesn't quite work anymore. But in any case, it is at this point where we do find out why Aragon specifically wants a human bride. As it turns out, it's for no other reason than just because he can. That's essentially the only reason Sam was chosen. We find out that Aragon wants a human bride, and of course Sam is currently being dressed up in her gown and all the things. But Dora admits that that's the only reason he wants a human bride, not for love or anything, just for the idea of having an exotic bride that nobody else in the ghost world actually has. Obviously, the Ghost Zone. Obviously, Danny and Vlad are kind of the only quote-unquote humans in their world. So a fully human person just being married to a king of ghosts and a king from the Dark Ages as that, he just wants to be interesting. But of course, Sam points out that that's a little bit weird, and points out that she doesn't feel like that's right. But of course, Dora points out that it is what it is, and proceeds to dress her up. And it is at this point where we then see Aragon and his delegation sitting in the dining room, and we find out that well, it's implied to be his delegation because they're all important-looking people, but we find out that everybody is bored out of their mind. The jester is half-heartedly juggling some balls. The musician is falling asleep, barely able to play his pieces, and everybody's just sitting there waiting for something to happen. Finally, Aragon gets fed up and proceeds to demand that he see his bride. And it's at this point where Sam proceeds to burst into the room, and she is fully dolled up. She is just she's wearing a black dress that she's spray painted black. She drew greasy eyeliner on herself, and she of course has punked out her hair to make herself look more, metal and goth and all these other things. And she is currently, and of course she is not acting like a princess should be acting. She is essentially rampaging through the hall, eating all the food, just being as vulgar and rude as she possibly can within the censors, of children's programming. But and she is, of course, swinging from the chandelier on the ceiling, and a bunch of other things. Eventually, Aragon demands that his sister do something, which, of course, Dora has no interest in doing. And eventually he calls her useless and calls his guards, and then proceeds to tell his guards to restrain his bride and bring her to the dungeon, with Sam, of course, playing out that she's very confused. She doesn't understand, pointing out that they're supposed to be married. But of course, Aragon proceeds to point out that she is going to be no bride of his. At which point, he proceeds to get ready to go and grab the crown off her head, proclaiming that she's not worthy of it. Which Sam points out that was exactly what she was counting on. But in case it's at this point where Sam and Danny proceed to come to Sam's rescue, as Aragon is about to take her crown off, and proceeds to drag her toward the entrance, with her pointing out that yelling at them to let her go, which They, of course, then proceed to reveal that she's there, that they're actually Danny and Tucker, and are there to rescue her. But she admits that she was, you know, doing fine on her own before they showed up. At which point they discover, too late, that Sam's crown prevents her from leaving. So of course she was, of course, very visibly upset by that for botching it up. At which point Eragon bellows to go after them because they're running away with his bride. At which Dora, of course, is confused by, pointing out that she thought that Eragon didn't want his bride anymore. But he then proceeds to snap at her, telling her not to think and to do as she's told. At which point he proceeds to transform into his dragon form. He proceeds to get ready to go and gear up for the fight against Danny. And of course, he immediately tries to breathe fire at them, but Tucker has since figured out practical use for all of his dead technology by using the Ghost Archer's bow and arrow to fire his PDAs into Eragon's nose. And this, of course, clogs up his schnoz, which means he can't breathe fire. And of course, Tucker makes a joke about how his technology, even when his technology doesn't work, it can still get through any firewall. At which point, Eragon proceeds to snort out the technology, proceeds to breathe fire at Danny, and with Tucker pointing out, and never mind. At which point, Danny and Eragon proceed to get into a fight with Eragon just kind of setting everything on fire in his immediate vicinity, trying to get at Danny. And this just causes huge forest fires and everything around his kingdom. But of course, Sam at this point then comes to Dora and tells her asks her why she lets her brother treat her like that. Of course, pointing out that that's just the way it is, and claiming that her brother has always been more powerful than her. But Sam proceeds to explain that no, he's not. She proceeds to tell Dora that she's just as big as powerful as her brother, pointing out that they have the same powers. They should very well be equal. And of course, this causes Dora to think that maybe Sam is definitely right, pointing out that they are wearing the same amulet, and realizing that is in fact, you know, realizing now that Sam might be right, is indeed exactly right. Realizes that means she's just as powerful to take the crown off Sam's head as Eragon is. And of course, proceeds to use her abilities to break the crown and get Sam out of it. And, you know, now that Sam is free of the crown, they then proceed to go and confront Eragon. And of course, Danny is of course struggling with Eragon. With of course him insisting that asking Eragon if they can do it the easy way or the hard way, and if he can get his friend back. But Eragon then proceeds to pin Danny down and tells him that they'll go with the slow and painful way. At which point he's about to roast Danny with his fire breath. But then it's at this point where Dora shows up and attacks him. And Danny and of course at this point where obviously Eragon demands to know what Dora is doing. And Dora of course remarks that she's finally standing up for herself. She's finally sick and tired of Eragon's abuse, and admits and proceeds to tell her that she's been putting up with it for 1,600 years. Her brother has been essentially harassing her, not allowing her to share her opinions or anything else, and constantly insulting her and putting her down for 1,600 years, and she's finally putting her down and getting sick of it. And of course, then proceeds to kind of level the playing field. But of course, Eragon tries to shut her up by grabbing her muzzle. At which point, he proceeds to blame Sam, pointing out that it's all Sam's fault that she's having these progressive ideas, and that his sister was fine before Sam showed up. But of course, it's at this point where Danny proceeds to use the momentary distraction to swipe Eragon's amulet, which, fittingly enough, I think has his name. I'm pretty sure from the original episode where Dora showed up, that was, you know, the name of the amulet. But he then proceeds to tell Eragon, as he transforms back into his normal ghost form, that he should really learn to listen to Sam, pointing out he definitely should have been listening to some of those ideals the entire time. At which point, Eragon, now effectively defeated because he now no longer has his dragon form, is essentially just hanging limply from his sister's muzzle, with his sister shaking him off. At which point she points out that it's finally time they brought in some new ideas. At which point she proceeds to push away the gray clouds that prevent their domain from, you know, having technology and being trapped in the Dark Ages, and proceeds to use her powers to undo it and finally free them. With Eragon despairing of the fact that their world is no longer stuck in the Dark Ages. He is visibly not happy. But and of course, with Dora now in full control of the domain, having successfully defeated her brother, she very much thanks Sam for everything she's done for her, pointing out that she's finally opened her eyes. While Tucker tries to flirt with some ghost girls, and this is where Danny proceeds to drag him off to the Fenton Speeder with Tucker points out that to just telling the girls to call him, pointing out that they can now, technology will work, and of course, at this point, where Danny proceeds to return them back to the stage where they did the beauty pageant with, of course, everybody, all of the girls, being very vehemently angry at Danny for declaring Sam the winner. And, of course, it's at this point where Danny finally clears up the misunderstanding. He never officially declared a winner. He openly explains that to them. He never officially declared a winner, which of course causes them to all calm down a bit, at which point Danny explains that he understands that beauty pageants are important because he understands now that there's a lot of that he understands now the importance of beauty pageants. That's you know there's a lot of ideas and other things that he realizes that don't really mesh well, that don't really come through well in beauty pageants. He admits that he needed someone else to teach him that, and he admits that he can think of no better person to give the crown to than Sam. He finally officially declares her a winner, and she is very visibly over the moon, but then also reveals that she's speechless, but then reveals that no, scratch that, she actually does have something that she wants to say, proceeding to point out that beauty pageants are stupid, and proceeding to discard her crown and bouquet that Danny gave her, and then proceeds to lock arms with him, taking him to the Nasty Burger for a vegetarian meal, with him declaring that sounds great, but also tells her that she's buying because, you know, it's the 21st century and all that. But in any case, they part ways. Now I've had the newfound understanding about why beauty pageants suck. But meanwhile, Tucker, of course, still trying to shoot a shot with the ladies, of course, because it's Tucker. He proceeds to point out that even though the whole beauty pageant thing is over, he does still point out that there's still plenty of him to go around. At which point, Star and Paulina decide to do a rock paper scissors. Gonna call back to what happened previously in the episode. Do a rock paper scissors to see who gets the guy's eyes out first. Star wins, and Tucker's chased off, and that's how the episode ends. So yeah, of course, this episode is very much about, you know, the demeaning things of you know, obviously the old-fashioned ideas of beauty standards and all those other things. And case in point, you've got Eragon, who is a dick. And we've established that. We've got Eragon, who very much represents a lot of old ideas that are just so horribly outdated. Obviously, he believes a woman's place is to be pretty, do as they're told, be obedient, not think for themselves. He is extremely old-fashioned, and unfortunately, that is just a world we do not live in anymore. Obviously, I've already talked about that. I've gone on my little rants earlier, but and I don't think I would ever be able to repeat what I said because I don't remember. But you know, beauty pageants kind of suck because they kind of force people to adhere to beauty standards that some people might not actually fit into, but also the entire idea that women are supposed to fit into a general beauty standard is kind of absurd, and that's kind of what the episode is trying to say. That's you know, it's okay to be like, oh, this girl's pretty and all these other things. Don't try to force them into a standard, I guess, is what the episode's trying to say. You know, the beauty pageants suck because of that. They try to force an unrealistic standard of beauty, and you know, that's what the episode kind of points that out. That's it's obviously Sam is not this unrealistic example of beauty. She's Sam. She's goth. She's individualistic. She has strong opinions. She is everything that that this kind of, you know, contest is against. She is very much, and honestly, that's it. That's just what I gotta say. The beauty pageants suck because of that. They try to squeeze individuality out of people. I don't know if they're any better since then, because honestly, this episode was 15-20 years ago. But you know, this was the, well, a ballpark of 15, 20 years ago, but you get my point. Point is, I'm pretty sure beauty pageants have updated their standards a little bit since then, but still the point still stands that obviously beauty pageants tried to impose an unrealistic beauty standard, and unfortunately that's just not something. I think that's something I should mention. The episode just made me realize that that's the kind of thing I just do not agree with. Like, there's no traditionally pretty. There's not something traditionally pretty. It's just, you know, what makes a girl pretty, or what makes a guy handsome, or whatever you prefer. Because I know not everybody's into that. Not into, you know, guys and girls. Some people are. Well, some guys are into guys, some girls are into girls, and then there's everything in between. But we're not going to talk about that. But I am a supporter of that community. Doesn't mean this is the time or place to talk about that. But you know, like, the point is, regardless of what you prefer, there is no one standard of beauty. I should mention there is no one standard of beauty. This is like it's obviously you can obviously whatever boy or girl or whoever you would prefer, they're beautiful or handsome to you because, you know, you like that person, not because, you know, they are traditionally beautiful or handsome. None of that. But you know, that's kind of the point I'm trying to make, I guess. Just beauty standards. They suck. Just don't uphold. Don't be yourself. Don't try to be upheld to some society's beauty standards or something like that. That's I guess what I'm trying to say. But in any case, that is going to do it for today's review. Kind of a bit of an interesting discussion for this episode. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this review. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also be sure to go and check out my Twitter in the description below. You can absolutely go do that. Go check out my Patreon. Description is down below. It helps support me, so please go do that. If you want to, of course. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. And I appreciate that if you did. But go check out my Discord. We are going to be reviewing a horror movie end of the month. Please go check that out. I mean, yeah, go and check that out. And yeah, go and check out my Discord. Go and check out my Discord anyway, because I know a lot of you aren't over there. Please go do that. And go and check out my Twitch. Go and check out my Twitch. I stream Saturdays and Sundays. We're going to be streaming horror games the entire month. So please go do that. The month's ending, but yeah, you can still do that. And also, finally, if you want to go and check out, more things that I've made, please go check out either of the playlists in the end screen. The top video is, of course, the top playlist is of course Magus Month, which I reviewed for my birthday last year. And for the 18th birthday of Magus XLR, just decided to do that for the anniversary. That just wound up working out. But yeah, and also be sure and go and check out my Twitch. Link is of course. Go check out the other video playlist. I guess no. Go check out the other playlist. The other playlist is Courage Month, where I reviewed Courage the Cowardly Dog for Halloween 2 years ago. Please go check that one out as well. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!